Welcome back everyone. Today we will be discussing the Jordan 4 Lightning. Specifically, we will be discussing some release info, how to cop, and of course, some resale predictions at the end of the video. The Jordan 4 Lightning releases on August 28th. Retail is $220 for men, $150 for grade school, $80 for preschool, and $60 for toddler. Stock between all sizes combined worldwide is just over 160,000 pairs. This is certainly more than what we usually see for Jordan 4s, and it's still up there for many other Jordan Retro for that matter. In fact, about 15,000 men's pairs and 5,000 grade school pairs have already dropped through the Nike Sneakers Exclusive Access release just a couple days ago. Regarding resale, we will cover that towards the end of the video as always. With the release info out of the way though, let us jump into how to cop the Jordan 4 Lightning. Specifically for this how to cop, we'll be going in chronological order along with exactly how to efficiently manage your time and set up for this drop, since a lot is going to be going on at once. Prior to discussing the first come first serve online drops though, make sure to follow my Twitter, KeithAdam10, and personals for you for any urgent updates on these, such as the exclusive access that we already saw. So again, make sure you are following there, not just for these but for any updates in general. Anyway, before the Lightning Jordan 4 drop, I will be dropping some free Gargantua beta keys for the Jordan 4 Lightning drop specifically, so if you're interested in running for that drop, of course, make sure to follow Twitter if you are interested. Also, please make sure that you don't forget to sign up for the Flex App Reservations. This is certainly one of your best ways to get pairs, as well as asking your local foot stores about their procedure for the leftover pairs. You guys should know the drill by now when it comes to the general release Jordan releases tends to be somewhat the same for the most part. So now, moving on to the first come first serve online sites, we'll start with the US sites in chronological order, then we'll go to the Europe sites afterwards. Speaking of Europe, just for Europe and UK, I am doing an endurance restock, which I did post a forum for on Twitter. This is an exclusive raffle only for Europe and UK. Don't worry guys, I do plan to restock US in the near future. However, this one in particular is just Europe and UK. So if you are from there, be sure to fill it out before the forum closes. Anyway, at 8 a.m. Eastern time, we should be seeing Undefeated Drop as usual. Before this time, make sure you are signed into your Undefeated account, as it is required to check out on the site. Be ready to solve a checkpoint captcha as well. If you don't have access to a Shopify monitor, you could try refreshing the search page for AJ4, but your chances of copying will be very slim, since at the end of the day, it is a Shopify site. But now, moving on to the confirmed 10 a.m. Eastern time drops, this is where the fun begins. As usual, you guys should know the drill by now, so since there is a lot to focus on, I'll guide you and suggest to you how to efficiently manage your time. At least this is how I've been going about it on the manual side of things. First, I would suggest going for Hibbett as your first come first serve choice at exactly 10 a.m. Eastern time, since Hibbett will sell out quickly. This is what we've been suggesting recently, and it's been going well, so we won't change this yet. For everyone who has been asking about the press and hold loop, this is unfortunately the result of the Perimeter X bot protection. I briefly touched on this in my prior how to cop guides before. Essentially, in order to avoid the loop, rather than refreshing the product page, visit the coming soon page under launches and click the product just several seconds before 10 a.m. Eastern time. By the time it does load up for you and you solve the first press and hold, sizes should then show as it should be live. Try to time it to the best of your abilities. Another tip from one of the last drops: if you solve the press and hold, it's going to be very tempting to scroll down very quickly to see the sizes as fast as possible. However, I did notice that if you scroll very slowly, there is a significantly lower chance of getting that press and hold loop, so my suggestion would have to be to take your time when scrolling down, although it does seem counterintuitive. My primary goal for here though is certainly to use Apple Pay on your mobile device for the most efficient checkout. Or as an alternative to Hibbett as your first come first serve choice at 10 a.m. Eastern time, you can choose one or two Shopify sites to focus on at exactly 10 a.m. If I had to choose two for you guys, normally I'd suggest Shop Nice, Kicks, and Shoe Palace, since they get pretty high stock and they do have a checkpoint. However, for this drop in particular, I cannot exactly recommend that, or I wouldn't for the most part. The reason is due to the fact that they charge around $27 for shipping. If you're okay with a very low margin, I think you'll still be okay, especially if you don't have tax in your state, since these simply do have very, very high demand. But you must also remember that the retail on these is unfortunately $220, not the usual $190 for Jordan 4s. We'll discuss more about the resale later, and don't worry, you shouldn't really be too concerned. But when it comes to a site with $27 shipping, it's certainly not ideal when when you do have other options. Anyway, instead, if you do prefer to not go for Hibbett, I'd then suggest Jimmy Jazz and DTLR, since they also do get high stock and they do have a checkpoint as well. Also, Jimmy Jazz has been loading early links as of lately, as some of you guys have been noticing in my tweeted site list. You could also consider going for Kith, since it does seem that Shopify has patched their HCAPTCHA exploit, at least for quite a while now too. In conclusion, your 10 a.m. first come first serve should be on Hibbett, or if you can multitask, or if you just don't want to go for Hibbett as your first come first serve site, then maybe try to focus on DTLR and Jimmy Jazz too. And if you're okay with a very poor margin, perhaps if you have no tax in your state, then I guess you could also consider Shop Nice, Kicks and Shoe Palace, but just bear in mind, even those sites are very difficult manually as well. Overall, my biggest suggestion would have to be to stick with Hibbett. Now, right after those first come first serve drops are over, even while you're waiting in the Shopify queue hypothetically, I want you guys to enter in as many sneakers accounts into the drop as possible until around 10:10 a.m. Eastern Time. This is going to be your number one chance by far for copying these, but now what is the most efficient way to cop off of Nike sneakers manually? These are currently loaded as a Dan drop, which they have been doing much more frequently as of recently. Dan drops are also known as draws. You essentially have 10 minutes to enter in as many of your accounts into the raffle as possible. Evidently, the more you could enter within that period, the better your chances will be. I actually made a full video on this, which I'd highly suggest watching, where I go in depth because there is much more to it. If you guys want to make more accounts, remember, Nike does require SMS verification and you cannot use the same phone number twice. So as I always mention, you will have to ask a friend of yours to use their phone number, ask them for the verification code. However, if you rather not bother your friends, or you just want a significant amount of pre-verified Nike sneakers accounts in general, feel free to check out my site TARS. The link for that is in the description below for pre-verified Nike sneakers and Adidas accounts. But after sneakers, it'll be 10:10 a.m. Eastern Time. At this point, you'll want to shift your focus onto foot sites and periodically checking Finish Line, JD Sports, and potentially, if Snipes does end up loading these, to see if you have past Q. DSG might also potentially be dropping these too, although as of me recording this, it's not yet confirmed. Just keep an eye out on it, but I will tweet out if they are on the site list. Make sure to set up tabs for these sites beforehand. You should set them up as soon as you see my account or personals for you tweet out the links. This way, they're already ready to go and waiting in queue after sneakers. The key to copying on foot sites, which is Foot Locker, Kids Foot Locker, Foot Action, Eastbay, and Champs, is persistence, not exactly speed. However, as of the last half a year or so, manual has changed from very difficult here to nearly impossible since Datadome was introduced to replace Akamai on foot sites. Regardless, it's still worth trying anyway since there isn't much else going on after sneakers ends. As for Finish Line, JD Sports, and Snipes, if they do load, as you're trying to card on foot sites, just periodically keep checking your tabs to see if you have past Q yet. When you do pass Q, it's quite self-explanatory from there. Just try to add to cart and check out. But anyway, that will conclude it for the US site, so now moving on to Europe. Although many Europe retailers are doing raffles as usual, there still will be some first come first serve opportunities. The best drop for Europe, as usual, will have to be Nike sneakers at 9 a.m. CEST. These are loaded as a Dan drop, also known as draw, which we did just discuss earlier in the US section. Since this is a draw, you won't need to prioritize this site at exactly 9 a.m. CEST. Instead, I'd suggest focusing on a first come first serve site of your choice, then coming back to sneakers right afterwards. It is extremely likely that Soulbox and Snipes will both be dropping around 9 a.m. CEST as usual, although just recently the Pollens did drop at 8:50, so be on the lookout for that time as well. If you do have access to a Soulbox and Snipes monitor, you'll have a decent chance of copying here. If not, I would suggest following more sneakers or personals for you on Twitter. I would also suggest making accounts beforehand and being signed in. Similar to Hibbett, you should also try to generate some activity on the site beforehand to reduce the perimeter X captcha loops. The same goes for both sites. Zalando and Courier should also both be dropping, although they have not loaded the products just yet. Then Offspring might potentially drop. For Offspring, I would suggest enabling post notifications for their Instagram if you don't have access to a monitor. They're relatively fast at sending it out when live. However, they normally don't end up dropping at 9 a.m. if they even do drop, of course, so you do not need to focus here anyway. Foot Locker will also be dropping. Try to use multiple Chrome users to pass Q on here. Foot Locker will probably be the worst drop as usual. Just leave tabs on it, and if you happen to get through, you get through. And again, Foot Locker is a queue release, so no need to focus here at exactly 9 a.m. either. But that will be it for the how to cop portion of the video. Now with the how to cop out of the way, let us move on to the resale predictions. So to start, the retail on this pair is unfortunately higher than usual at $220 rather than the usual $190. The grade school pair is also $10 higher than the usual $140 at $150. Furthermore, the stock on these is certainly relatively high, especially for a Jordan 4, but still not insanely high, nothing to concern too much over. However, it is all okay, at least in my opinion. It is okay because the demand on these is absolutely insane. These have been people's grails for years now, since their initial drop in 2006. This is a shoe I used to dream about copying when I started collecting in 2013. Forget about my opinion though, that's not relevant. This insane demand is clearly reflected through the insane sale volume. For example, that these have had on the 20th alone for sales over $300, and on top of that, over a whole week out from the drop. This is absolutely incredible. Furthermore, the bids also appear to be quite stable as well. Of course, prices will fall a good amount as we approach the drop. That's inevitable, but regardless, I do feel that this mass amount of demand will be sufficient for these to be profitable even with that $220 retail. If you have tax, expect a subpar to poor margin unfortunately, but still potential for some lunch money regardless. If you have no tax, you can certainly expect a decent margin, nothing crazy due to the high retail of $220. Regardless, there should still be easy money to be made on these. Personally, I am going full throttle on these. You guys know how I feel about these lunch money to small profit releases. The money certainly does add up. I will be focusing on the larger sizes primarily, but I will be copying any of the men or grade school sizes, just that my focus is going to be on the large men's sizes 10.5 and above. Again, nothing incredible, but this profit does add up. It's a great opportunity in my opinion. And you bet I am certainly copying a personal pair. Let me know what you guys think about this pair. Is this a grail for you as well? It certainly is for me. Anyway, that'll conclude it for today. Feel free to leave a like if you enjoyed, or perhaps if you learned a thing or two. Subscribe and enable post notifications just to stay 100% updated on all hyped releases. Also, feel free to check out the links in the description below for reliable, fast residential proxies and pre-verified Nike sneakers or Adidas accounts. Also, feel free to follow Endurance's Twitter for updates on restocks or key giveaways, and the same goes for Gargantua if you want to keep up with the progress or free beta key drops. Last but not least, make sure to follow KeithAdam10 and Personals for you so you guys stay updated on all urgent info like I was discussing today. With that though, I will see you guys later. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and of course, good luck on the release.